Good morning, everybody. Welcome to what is a very wet Wednesday where I'm here in London. So hopefully you're in a drier part of the country. This is the Retail Digital Transformation webinar, our first session of two today. And actually, it's our final sessions of 2022 as well. So this wraps up our calendar for this year, and we've had a great year. And firstly, can I just say thank you to any of you that are watching who came to our retail conference, our proper get-together in-person conference that happened in America Square last Tuesday. And especially those of you that had to battle through strikes, rescheduled train timetables and so on. Unfortunately, some of our speakers and our delegates were affected by those and couldn't make it, but we had a reasonably good turnout, and we appreciated you all battling through to actually come and be there in person. And of course, to celebrate the Retail Bulletin's 20th birthday, which we did that evening as well. Dates for your diary for next year. If you enjoyed the retail conference, there'll be a one-day event again in person on the 14th of November 2023, so just a year away from now, and it will whiz by, no doubt. And of course, we are really excited about the People in Retail Awards, which is a new innovation from the Retail Bulletin, putting people at the absolute centre of everything we do, and recognising retailers and those individual superstars and their stories. Nominations open on the 1st of February, and the awards are on the 21st of September next year. All of these details are available on the Retail Bulletin website, along with details of all the digital webinars that will be taking place and the programme for those as well. For those of you that know me, I'm Darren. Sorry, those of you that don't know me, I'm Darren. I take care of these events on behalf of the Retail Bulletin. I wear a few hats. I'm the exec chair of a skincare brand called Scrubbed, a non-exec chair of a PR company called Liberty, and my consultancy is called Williams Harding, and we're currently working with an orthodontics chain in Barcelona called Impress and doing their global rollout. So lots going on. But don't worry about me. Let's meet the people that are on screen with me as well, because they've got lots to talk to you about this morning. And I'm sure we're going to have a really good session ahead. So I'm going to say good morning to you, gentlemen, and ask you to tell us a little bit about yourselves. Lee, if we can start with you, please. Who are you, sir?
Yes, good morning. Thanks, Darren, for the introduction. And thank you, Karen and the Retail Bulletin, for allowing me to join the panel this morning. I'm delighted to be here. So I'm married and I've got 3 children. I live in the northeast of England, and actually I think it's finally stopped raining up here, Darren, so I think you've got probably our weather that's moved south. I've been with Worldline for around 12 years. Actually, originally I was with Ingenico, who Worldline acquired a couple of years ago, for 10 years. I've got 20 years experience in payments, and I've been privileged to work with a lot of UK retail brands in implementing payment solutions to help them assure revenues, but deliver the best experience possible for their customers. But like I said, delighted to be here this morning. Thank you, Darren.
And you're so welcome to be here, sir. And yeah, thanks for joining us. Aaron, tell us about you, sir. Who are you?
Hi, everybody. I'm Aaron. I'm currently in London, actually, although I live in Jersey. I'm the founder of a business called Feel Unique, which is a big online beauty retailer. It's going for about 16 years, and we sold it in October of last year to LVMH. And if anyone's following beauty retail, you'll see now that Sephora UK is here, and they're here through acquisition. They bought our business and rebranded it Sephora UK. So I stepped down from Sephora a couple of months ago, and I'm now working on the development and the launch of a new skincare and makeup brand specifically for teenagers called Indu, which is launching next June. I'm working on that with kind of absolutely amazing team, and super excited about it. The aim is to create a global brand for teenagers. I've got 2 teenage daughters myself, so that's kind of where the idea came from. So yeah, and again, yeah, you know, as Lee said, very, very honoured to be invited to join this.
You're very welcome, and I'm sure your 2 teenagers are a tough audience for testing and checking out the products. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got twins. They're 13, and yeah, the whole reason for doing it is that there isn't really a kind of holistic brand specifically formulated for teenagers, either in makeup or skincare, or certainly not across the two. So it was kind of a gap in the market that they spotted, that what started as a crazy idea 18 months ago is now going to be a thing. So yeah, they're super excited about it.
How all the best ideas start. And welcome to London, by the way. You see, I've arranged the weather for you as well. So, you know, you're very welcome.
Yeah.
Good to have you on the panel. Nick, last but not least, tell us about you, sir.
Hi, Darren. Oh, thanks for having me. Lovely to see you again. So I'm Nick. I'm Insight Director at Auto Trader. I'm a consumer psychologist, and I'm fascinated by people and technology and cars. And I've been working in marketing research for over 30 years, 35 years actually. And I've been Auto Trader, which is the UK's largest marketplace for cars. We have over 400,000 cars for 16 years. Always worked in marketing and research, apart from 31 years ago now. I was in one of the first indie bands in the UK, and I played guitar, and I had a wall of marshal amps here, and they've blown my ears away, and I'm now stone deaf. This ear doesn't work at all, and this ear has tinnitus. And I only say that because this laptop is plugged into an amp so I can hear, but if I do miss a question, please shout at me.
I will shout loudly, don't worry about that, all good. And thank you, sir, for joining the panel today. That's our lineup. I'm sure you'll agree. We've got lots to talk about with a great panel. We'd love you to get involved as well, because this is for you, our audience, that we do these events. So somewhere on your device, depending on what you're using, there will be a Q&A button. Please do use it, and I promise to you that every question that gets asked will be answered. You may have a question for one of these guys specifically, or you may have a panel-wide question. All are welcome, and I will field them appropriately. Just a warning as well, my dog is in the house, so she got very wet this morning on her walk, so she's sulking somewhere, but she can be known to make appearances, sometimes uninvited. So just be warned, if you hear a random bark or suddenly she appears on camera, you'll be prepared. But you know what? In this virtual world that we live, everyone's welcome. So don't worry if you have your own interruptions, gentlemen, as well. Good. Let's kick off. Lee, I'm going to start with you. So gentlemen, wait for Lee to cover off his first question. You can take a sip of something hot and warm, and I'll start with Lee. Lee, we're talking about enhancing retail growth in this session. And one of the things I'm interested to start with is how a brand can improve keeping customers loyal. Because I think understanding loyalty is one thing, but then improving on that statistic is obviously really important as well. What can you share on that?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, Darren, because actually if you take a step back and you think about, customers and loyalty and how important it is to an organization, I've done a bit of research and reading up in this area. And I think there was an article by Bain & Company, and they talked about the fact that to acquire new customers, and this is no surprise, it's 4 to 10 times more expensive than actually just keeping and growing the relationships you have with those you've already got. If you also look at it and say, okay, if I improve my retention rates, what would that do to my bottom line as an organization? Again, they think that actually just a 5% increase can deliver a 25% bottom line impact. So big statistics there. For me, the big part about the loyalty thing is you've got to really focus in on the customer experience. And I think you've got to look at how you can get rid of friction, how you can make things easy, convenient for customers. And actually, and again, these stats will be no surprise, but, if 1 in 3 people have a bad experience, they will abandon a brand at that point. If 2 or 3 bad experiences happen, then 92% of people will abandon a brand. And it's very, very difficult, as I mentioned earlier, to actually get customers to come back to a business. So for me, it's really about focusing in on what can you do to make things better. And I think technology's got a part to play in that. We've done a lot of work around all sorts of self-service initiatives, from kiosks to self-checkout devices, to apps, to mobile units. And we've seen, the way customers embrace technology when there's something in it for them. And we're also seeing, even, loyalty schemes now currently being enhanced and developed, and even new ones being introduced. So Asda and McDonald's recently have just launched new loyalty schemes as businesses, and they've got millions of new customers actually who've embraced their, sort of adoption of digital technology. And the final point I'll just touch on, I think, is, for retailers in particular, you have to consider the role of staff as well. I think when customers go into a shop and they interact with a member of staff, if they actually have a positive experience of dealing with that person, they're 86% more likely to carry on and actually make a purchase. However, if they find a member of staff doesn't add value to the transaction and what they're trying to do, it can deliver a negative experience for around 60% of people. So that loyalty piece, the customer experience, and then translating that into bottom line benefit, I think for me is really, really important.
That 92% abandonment stat seems astonishing.
Yeah, there were a couple of others as well, Darren, that I looked at. And again, another one that wasn't a surprise to me was, how many people actually will walk into a shop, see a queue in front of them and just think, you know what, I can't be bothered with this. And I'm definitely one of those. So yeah. I think for me, you can see the fine line. So actually investing to get the experience right up front and really limit those bad experiences is really key, because if you lose a customer, have to go and attract another one, the cost of doing that, the time to do it, etc., is really difficult. But if you can get a positive experience, then over 70% of people will actually go and tell 6 of their friends. So actually, by delivering a better experience, looking after the existing customers that you've got, you can actually get new customers almost by default, because everybody talks about the great experience they've had, how such and such in a shop, was really helpful, give them a personalized service. And then, it probably leads on to data as well. There's more and more data around in the world as well, and tapping into that to understand how shoppers behave, how you can make things more targeted, personalized and engaging from an experience perspective, just makes that person and that individual shopper just feel much more valued. So I think there's lots of things around that, but I think for me, customer experience is key. Focusing in on it and then looking at the role of technology and people, I think, is vital.
No, it's great, and I'm one of those people that walk out with a queue, by the way, because I'm horribly impatient just about on every subject. But it amazes me how many major retailers who have got smaller format stores and large format stores run their small format stores on lone working sometimes. So you've got this poor member of staff that's not only got no colleagues to kind of bounce off, but they've got customers staring at them because customers have queries, they want to be served at the till, and this member of staff is expected to do everything. And I see examples of that all the time. And, I will just go because I'm time poor and I want to transact quickly. So it's a really good point.
I think,
go on.
Just very quickly, just going to say, I think generally staff want to add value. They want to be empowered. They want to help. And actually, the more you can encourage that, the better they will feel, the more engaged they will be, and the more likely you are to keep them as well. And that will change. So I think the people part for me sometimes gets lost along all the sort of the focus around technology.
100% agree. And that's one of the very reasons why we're trying to bring it back front and center with the People in Retail Awards next year. You see what I did there? Nice little segue. Take a sip of something nicely. I'm going to come on to Aaron next. Thank you for that, sir. Aaron, are there any examples, staying on this loyalty issue, are there any examples of loyalty or retention programs that you've either run or you've seen other retailers do that have worked particularly well?
I think, so when we started to look at loyalty at Feel Unique, which was fairly early on in the journey, because we were, when we kind of launched the business, we were up head to head against Boots. Really was probably our most threatening competitor at the time, and they had a very, very simple points-based loyalty scheme. And we looked at lots of different things. We tried lots of different things. We tried kind of prize-based. We tried referrals. We tried all sorts of things. But the thing that we kept coming back to, and the thing that kind of stuck, and is still there to this day, was just something which was, again, not too dissimilar to Boots, which is just very transparent. When you spend X, you will earn X pounds or X pence to put towards your next purchase, because that does the job, I think, of keeping front and center, especially in kind of FMCG and consumer goods, things that people are buying regularly. It just keeps it front and center that, I've got, whether it's 50p or £5 or £20 of credit with Boots or Feel Unique or whomever, it makes the next purchase of that product a lot simpler. I mean, behind that, obviously, it needs to be incredibly transparent, incredibly easy to use, incredibly easy to execute, and incredibly easy to redeem. So for me, it's kind of like, I think it's a question of just keeping it as simple and as straightforward as possible. Once you start to overcomplicate it and people need to learn how to do something, or how to use loyalty, or how to work with it, back to your point about being time poor, I'm not the best. I mean, I'm probably the worst end of the spectrum because I've got ADHD anyway, but people don't want to have to learn how to do things to their benefit very often, and you see that with, instructions on your new phone and all that kind of stuff. People want intuitive. And I think it's really important for any loyalty scheme that it has to be intuitive and simple. You do this, you get that, and that's how you redeem it. Simple. Don't try and complicate it.
We were having this conversation at Scrub the other day, and we were talking about an offer that we were going to run at Christmas, and I didn't understand it. And I was saying, if I don't understand it and I work here, how the hell is a customer going to understand it? As well, it is about just that kind of immediate, I get it straight away, right? And I understand how I use it and how it benefits me, kind of thing. So
and that goes through the whole retail process, both in store and online. It needs to be minimal clicks, easy to understand, easy to navigate, easy to get in, easy to get out, easy to pay.
So easy. Is the fiscal part of it important though, Aaron? So is actually I am going to get money back, and I for example, the Boots Advantage card, I've had one forever, and then I sometimes forget that I just scan it as a matter of just course, and then I suddenly realize I've got 15-20 quid on it, but it's not always prevalent in my mind. Do you think that's a really important factor to build money up with a brand?
So we tried, like I said, we tried all sorts of things. We tried, if you earn so many points, you can get X amount of samples, or you can get this free gift, or you can get, that towards some other brand's retail proposition, or you can get some Love Wines vouchers, or whatever it is. But the degree of success when you just go right back to basics and go, if you spend X, we will give you X back towards your next purchase, was exponentially better. And I think if you look at the most successful loyalty schemes, they are based on that. I'm a Waitrose customer only because it's the only supermarket in Jersey, and I know that sounds very middle class, but it genuinely is. The other one's miles away from where I live. I mean, and although actually in fairness, nowhere's far in Jersey, but it's the only supermarket where I am. So I am a Waitrose customer by definition. I don't have their little Waitrose card because it's just not clear to me what I'm getting. So I think it just needs to be, it has to be dead simple. And for me, kind of monetary reward is just the most basic, and it worked. But so you're asking for a real world example, and I can only speak to what works for us and what continues to work.
Got it. Thank you, sir. And if anyone out there in our audience has got any hot tips on what you think may be a great loyalty scheme for us to look at for a retailer, or you indeed run one yourself, pop it into the chat or the Q&A, and I will share it on the broadcast as well. Thank you, sir. Take a sip of something nice. Nick, I'm going to come to you, sir. Digital retailing has obviously developed massively over the last decade and beyond, but really particularly over the last more recent years with pandemics, etc. There's small matters of pandemics. What are the expectations of consumers today when it comes to digital retail?
Thanks, Darren. And well, I wanted to jump into both Lee and Aaron's comments on.
Please start with an ad. Absolutely, go for it.
Ease. Well, it's similar. It's all about making things easy, simple, quick, and transparent. They're the basic tenets for everything, because we've all been through this mass force tech adoption. And example A is this: the Teams call, the Zoom call that we're also used to. Everyone does this. Our parents do it. Our grandparents do it because it's easy and simple. And as Aaron and Lee said, if something is difficult, and you said it as well, we give up. I mean, I tried to get, I came out to Manchester office in Manchester yesterday. I'm in our Manchester office today. I tried to go to Pizza Express to get a pizza, and they said it's going to be half an hour wait. I went, no, I don't wait half an hour. So I went to another restaurant, stood around, waited to be served. They ignored me. So I went to McDonald's. I don't want to go to McDonald's, but I had to go to McDonald's because it was quick. I even had to wait at McDonald's. We will not wait anymore. Anything that's slow or puts us off is really going to have an impact. I know that's stating the blindingly obvious. When we get to, my big topic at the moment is electric cars, because by 2030, we won't be able to drive internal combustion engine cars and new internal combustion engine cars in the UK. You won't be able to buy a new one. So we have to persuade the consumers to get into EVs, and they are complicated, and there are so many blockers in the way. It's charging, it's infrastructure, it's price, it's what sort of cables do I need, and can I get a charger at home, and what's the difference between a 7 kilowatt and a 22 kilowatt and a 28 kilowatt, and what's the difference between kilowatt and kilowatt hour, and if it isn't easy, what do we all do? Psychologically, what we all do is we go back to what we already know, which is something easy. So this plays with a premise called it's the first impressions count. It's the first thing you see will really, really irritate you if it's bad. As humans, negative impressions hit us a lot more stronger than positive ones. In a clinical trial, it took 9 positive outcomes to change 1 negative thought, but only 4 negatives to change a positive. So something bad or something irritating that happens to you or puts you off or makes you wait or is difficult, we just won't do it anymore. And I know this is blindingly obvious, isn't it? But in the world where we're all so used to everything now being instant and quick, if something is difficult, what do? We don't do it. So going back to Aaron's point about loyalty cards as well, if something is easy and they says, right, we're simply going to give you money back every time you spend something, great. If I've got to register through a complicated form, we have something at work here at Auto Trader, which is you get miniature discounts. It's called Auto Trader Club. If you pre-buy amount of money on a card, you can then spend that card on something and get 3% off at Argos and 4% off at Currys. And it's so complicated. It's like, yeah, we're all cost conscious now. So 3% savings is good, or 4% savings is good, but I've got to actually pay the money first, buy a card, then use that card to pay. Why can't I just pay and get a discount? Why can't I just get so yeah, digital retailing should make things easier for all of us. If it's making things more complicated, then we as humans revert back to the norm, which is go and do what I normally do. That's not a good thing to do today.
No, so it's a good point. And I think, that simple message is really coming through strongly from all of you, actually, about, communicate in a simple, clear way that provokes customer action that makes them want to stick around longer as well.
Well, and sorry, Dan, if you try, I'm only talk about cars at the moment, but if you imagine you're looking for a car, and I know you don't drive, but I imagine Aaron and
sometimes I do, Nick, sometimes.
But imagine you're looking to buy an electric vehicle and you're trying to read up about it. Is it in plain English? If it's not in plain English, if it's in jargonese with 3-letter acronyms and there's things like there's a Chardonnay charger and a CSS charger. What do they mean to the average consumer? When you buy a petrol or diesel car, everyone knows you can go to a petrol station and just fill it up. That's it. But you get an electric car, there's so many things in the way. So it's going to be a real lesson in ingenious copywriting and creative marketing to persuade the mass majority of people that actually this is going to be an easy thing to do and you can change. And we aren't there yet, because the only people that are buying EVs really at the moment are those eco-friendly and eco-conscious people who can afford them and probably have a drive.
Yeah. Well, I hold on to that thought, because I think we'll come back to that subject a bit later as well. But thank you for that, sir, and thank you for your contribution. Lee, I'm going to come back to you and kind of evolve this a bit into, I guess, organizations that are open to change. And it's, being open to change is a challenge for lots of organizations. We've seen, for example, big retailers like M&S and John Lewis talk about their transformation strategies and their org change, and very much in the public domain. And it's been harder for some of those big organizations to do that. But those organizations aside, why is it so important for organizations, big or small, to be open to change?
I think, change is inevitable, and I think we have to embrace it as well. I think, a lot of the time people fear change and they worry about it. Nick's just made some really good points, obviously, around the EV piece, and I will come back to it later. But this is a change, for everybody in terms of what we've known for many years around vehicles. And we've got to be open and receptive to change. We've got to understand as well what's in it for us when we do make changes. I mean, if you look back over the years, there's many organizations who stagnated they've not embraced change, and they found themselves in difficult situations, and one or two have actually gone out of business. And if you look at some of the stories around brands like Blockbuster and Kodak, it's really quite sad. In fact, a few years ago, I actually went to see Kodak in Rochester in New York State, and it was really sad because it was at the time where they were struggling to adapt and change and keep up with the digital sort of era and look at where things were going. And in the local community in Rochester, they were one of the sort of the biggest employers in the area. And it felt like a town had literally died as the company was dying at the same time. And it was a really sad thing to see. So for me, change is really important. And I'm always, sort of challenging my team, because there are a lot of things we do really well. And there are some things we can do better, but regardless, we can always improve. So I'm always challenging the team to say, look, just because we do something well, or we do something, in a certain way, doesn't mean we shouldn't challenge ourselves. We shouldn't embrace change and actually look at, how could we make it better? How can we improve? And I think change is important as well when it comes to staff, because actually as an organization, if you embrace change, then you'll give staff more opportunity to grow, to thrive and develop, and you'll give them that environment and that sort of business culture that says, what, it's all right to try new things, it's all right to embrace stuff, and it's all right to have a go. And if we make mistakes and get it wrong, what, that happens, let's learn from it and move on. But to not try, not change, is absolutely the wrong thing to do. I mean, as an organization, we're going through quite a lot of change. We made a lot of acquisitions as a company, but we're not stopping there and saying, okay, we've made some acquisitions, we've grown, we've got to a certain size, we do payments very well, okay, let's just settle for that. No, we have to continue to change. And and for me, when I hear people talking about that, it's actually one of the most refreshing and sort of most positive things I can hear from leadership, to say, what, we're going to drive, we're going to push, we're going to change the boundaries, and we're going to actually get out there. And I think for lots of businesses, they've tried lots of different things. Some organizations have adopted, multi-channel strategies. They've been strong maybe on in-store and less strong on, the online piece. And a few years ago, I used to see retailers who almost used to have, sort of competitive sort of silos within their business. So the online team working against the in-store team, and one had targets to hit this number and another with this, and at the end of the day, they were missing the point. They're all part of one company, all part of one team, all trying to deliver the best experience for customers now, who frankly do shop in more than just one channel. So I think those things have to change, and I think for me, it's as a leader in a business, you have to break down the silos, you have to encourage it, but you have to embrace it as well. So for me, I think change is vital. And, and I think, we talked about EV charging vehicles, there's so much to go, there's so much to happen. And I think for me, I think it's really exciting, to be honest, Darren.
Yeah, I think those silos are really a good point as well. And I think they do still exist in some retailers as well. I think, it astonishes me that sometimes retail directors don't necessarily know much about the performance of the online channel in their business, because there's two different channel heads. And you would have thought that would have been something that was in the past, but it's actually still something that goes on. So it's a good point. I think sometimes as well, there's a fear of change, obviously, and a fear of what the change will mean. And so sometimes let's not do anything, because actually the status quo is easier than the fear of that kind of thing. So yeah.
Just to add to that as well, I think it's important to listen as well, to listen to customers, put yourself in the shoes of your customers, but also listen to your staff as well, listen to your teams, because the best ideas, I always use a phrase which goes along the lines of, no one knows as much as all of us. Now, you have to give direction, you have to give guidance, and you can't do everything. But I think just giving people that forum and that opportunity to speak, I think we'll just see organisations evolve massively and a lot faster than some perhaps do today.
Agreed. I just had a massive ray of sun come through the window there. So I'm just trying to adjust my light. You may have seen me done, but yeah, thank you for that, Lee. And I think on that, listen to customers piece, one of the things I miss about having a retail estate, since I sort of left traditional retailers as it was my favourite place to be 4 days a week, I kid you not, was on the shop floor with my team, with my customers, travelling up and down the country, because all of my richest learnings were always in the physical space, and listening to people. And it, for those people out there that are feeling like you're stuck at home or stuck in head office, get out there to your stores, because there's rich learnings aplenty.
Just up to that, Darren, actually, there are a few retailers and customers of ours now who actually ask. I mean, a lot of their staff actually go out to stores, particularly for Christmas trading. But we get asked now if anybody actually wants to go and spend a day over Christmas working in one of our customer stores. And, you know, we've had a few do it and they come back and they've had a wonderful experience. They've really sort of got stuck in. And I think that's something to be encouraged for sure.
Yeah, Hotel Chocolat days, we used to force all of HQ out at least twice a year at Easter and Christmas, the 2 peaks. And literally everybody had to sign up. Any support function, any head office person, and it was an absolute ball, you know, and so many rich learnings from it, and it's good for the retail teams to see it as well. So absolutely. Aaron, I'm going to come back to you, sir. Leading on to this, from the silo bit into, hopefully, lots of our listeners today are already very omni-channel and got that covered, but how important is that omni-channel approach compared to uni-channel for scaling a retailer, particularly post-COVID?
I'm still chuckling about Nick's comment about electric cars because I've got one, and I've got I literally have no idea what I'm plugging it into. All I understand is whether I've got the right socket in the right hole. Because when you get the whole kilowatt thing, he's absolutely right. Having said that, I've got an electric car. I haven't driven it for 5 weeks. It's got a software fault. Putting all that aside, I love the car.
Is it a Tesla?
I'm not going to say, but no, it's not a Tesla.
You couldn't possibly say, okay.
I'm not going to say. No, it's not a Tesla. No, back to the question, however, I think so we built a retail business, obviously, with Feel Unique back in 2005, and the landscape was very, very different back then. It was actually fairly, I'm not going to say cheap, but it was pretty cost effective if you knew what you were doing to build a D2C brand, which is kind of what we were. You know, pay to play both on the kind of the social media channels that existed back then, and we're talking pre-Facebook and pre-Instagram. It was kind of MySpace, and pay to play on all of the shopping and price comparison sites was reasonable. Pay to play on Google paid search was reasonable, and you could do it. And the landscape is very, very different now, as I think it was Lee alluded to earlier. Nowadays, cost per acquisition of a customer is extortionate. The only winners now are the advertising platforms. So I think when I see a lot of sort of decks from retailers and from brands looking for investment and stuff, and when the biggest red flag that I get concerned about is when people are kind of like, well, hey, look, we're going to build a D2C brand only because we want to keep the margin, or for whatever reason, we don't want to work with, you know, retail platforms. I get terrified because I think it's almost impossible now to build a purely D2C brand unless you are prepared to lose an awful lot of money building your consumer base, because you almost certainly will, or you're very, very, very lucky and you hit some kind of virality, or you have a massive celebrity endorsement that will give you access to an audience or a community very, very quickly. So I think for me, and I think, yeah, and we've seen that with Sephora. The reason Sephora have come into the UK is because there's a big kind of bricks and mortar opportunity. Sephora is a bricks and mortar brand. I think any brand now, the reality is post-COVID, as much as we were all kind of at the beginning of COVID so excited about the future of digital and the high street is dead, I think actually we're seeing the flip side. People want to get back out. We want to get back into physical presence. They want experiential buying. They want to talk to people. They want to touch and feel. Yes, digital plays a big part in brand awareness, in replenishment, and all of those things. But I think I'm very nervous about any retail strategy that just involves either bricks and mortar or just digital.
Yeah, I agree. And I've never subscribed to this high street is dead mantra anyway, because, you know, born and bred on the high street, and that's where I've built my career. I think people still like to feel, touch, be with other human beings in environments. Yeah. Oh, and you saw that when stores unlocked after the pandemic. You know, people were just so excited to get them back. And you know, one of the silver linings, I guess, of the pandemic is it reminded us to be grateful for the things we took for granted. you know, the excitement of sitting in a restaurant again, all of those things. But yeah, some really good points there, Aaron. Nick, evolved this a bit for me then. So Aaron's point is very clear around, you know, it can't be one or the other, it needs to be both. But digital retailing obviously does have a huge impact, and lots of retailers are beginning to finally have one supporting the other. You know, there's you know, click and collect, for example, which, you know, many retailers are still playing catch up on. What is the impact digital retailing can have on sales?
Well, yeah, great question. And the word is omni-channel blended retailing. Allow the winners we see today are those who allow me to buy a car the way I want to buy a car, because we all like doing things online. We all like doing some. We're all researchers now. We all can research. There are pain points when you're buying a car. We've done a huge piece of analysis, huge piece of research. We identified about 28 pain points for car buyers. Some of them are organizing the finance, having to sit at a retailer with the business manager while they go through painfully all the different options, and it's all in jargon, doesn't really make sense, and you have to read a lot and you're under pressure because you want to buy your car. If you could do some of that online and pre-qualify yourself, then that makes the buying process a bit easier for you. So digital retailing, we think, and when we look to some of the retailers in the States, there's a big retailer in the States called CarMax, who are absolutely massive, huge, very, very successful group in America. And they did some research with the NFDA, with NADA, which is the North American Dealer Association. And it showed them that those retailers in their group which were using digital retailing were selling more vehicles than those that weren't. It doesn't mean they're only doing things online, but they're allowing the digital revolution to actually speed up and actually make them more efficient and make it a more easier process for the car buyer. But they never push anyone down one route. If you want the car delivered, you can have the car delivered. If you want to come and see it, you can come and see it. If you want to pick it up in a store, you can pick it up in a store. If you want to sort your finance out online, you can do it online, or you can do it on your phone, or you can do it in store. It's more work. But actually, when you're talking about touchy-feely, some people will buy a car without driving it. And if you're not particularly into cars, and you just want a mode of transport and you're happy, it will be delivered. As long as, I suppose, you have the allowance to be able to return it if you're unhappy. In America, CarMax, they give you up to 30 days to return the car, assuming you haven't damaged it and you haven't done too many miles. Kazoo and Cinch and all of the great sites you see advertising on telly all the time, which, by the way, is a brilliant promotion for car buying. The more people talk about buying a car, people think about, oh, I might buy a car. So actually, for my industry, it's great that people are talking about buying cars. They offer 7 to 14-day returns, which is basically distance selling. You have up to 30 days actually to return a car if you haven't tried it. But this makes me feel confident, and it's easy and it's simple. I helped my daughter buy a car in lockdown. She wanted a Mini. We went to a retailer nearer to us. It wasn't a very good experience, but she found one on one of these online sites like Kazoo. I won't say who it is. And the whole experience was fantastic. And the car was delivered, and she knew she'd tried a car. My wife has a Mini, she'd driven one, so she was not a sort of virgin buyer. Bought the Mini arrived, looked 4 years old, looks immaculate, she's delighted. So it's digital retailing, we think is the blend. Some people want to do things online, so make it easy for them. If it's can I reserve the car? Can I get a part exchange guide price for my car? Another big question. That's a haggling thing. People don't like haggling. Car dealers, the clue's in the name, they're dealers, they like dealing. But for me, it's because I don't want a deal. I'm scared. What if I get it wrong? How do I know I'm getting a bit ripped off? So let's make it transparent. So those four tenets, simple, easy, quick, and transparent, build trust.
Simple, easy, quick, transparent, build trust. Like that. Might steal that for myself for another meeting sometime. Nice one. Makes a lot of sense as well. We've had a question in actually from an anonymous attendee. Thank you, whoever you are. And I'm going to put this to all of you actually, a bit of a quick fire round. So we'll start with Lee. So this person, thank you, says, what UK retailers do you think do blended retail well? So any examples you might want to give? One each, guys. Lee, start with you.
Yeah, it's a great question. For me, I have to say one of the names that sort of jumped out earlier that you mentioned, was John Lewis. So, you know, when I think about them, you know, and when I use them, there's a lot of trust I have in the brand, but I think they've got, you know, the blend right in terms of a really sort of personalized experience using the partners in their stores around helping customers make decisions. And then online, you know, they cater and try and make things as easy as possible for people. But, you know, for me, you know, they're able to sort of join those journeys together. And, you know, they're certainly somebody I enjoy shopping with and a brand that I trust. And I think they're heading in the right direction, if I'm honest with you. There are many others as well, but they're just one that jumps out at me, Darren.
Okay. Aaron, who would you call out?
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't call out Sephora and Feel Unique, or what was Feel Unique. And I think that's only going to get better as Sephora rolls out stores. It's difficult. I don't think there's actually. I'm going to disagree with Lee slightly. I don't think that there's loads of them. But I will agree with Lee that I think John Lewis is a great example.
Yeah. Yeah. Despite all of their publicly talked about challenges, they've always been a great blended retailer. You know.
Yeah. And a couple of the supermarkets as well, I think, do a pretty good job.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I think, you know, when they link it into loyalty as well, the supermarkets in particular.
Yeah.
You know, I mentioned Asda have just launched a new scheme this year. Everybody knows about Nectar. Tesco have had something for many years as well. M&S are investing very heavily in their Sparks, you know, loyalty and, you know, and payment scheme as well. So there's a lot going on in that area. I think other ones as well that jump out, people like JD Sports also. You know, they're dealing with quite a wide demographic, you know, a business that's just, you know, continues to grow and, you know, and go in a really positive direction. I think, you know, they're also now starting to bring together the different channels much more effectively and to give that really joined up experience. So, yeah, there's a few more names.
Nick, who would you call out?
Well, I obviously have to agree with John Lewis. I mean, I'm so middle class. The only shop I'll go to is John Lewis and a Waitrose. And I do go to M&S, obviously, to get my pants and my shirt and my t-shirts, obviously. But it's just a lovely experience. Even my grandson has just started working at Peter Jones, which is the uber posh John Lewis in Sloane Square. He's just graduated, and he wants to go into management training. And so it's just they're partners. They embrace you. They embrace the customer. But in automotive, there are actually quite a few retailers who really are trying to do this blended thing. And I'm not going to name anyone because there are quite a few, and they are fantastic. But it's there are. I mean, I agree with Aaron as well. There aren't that many. I don't think other retailers who are really, really good at it. You want to be able to. So I am a musician and I buy guitars just for fun. I use them as well. I'm still in a band. There's a brilliant shop called Guitar, which, funnily enough, they sell guitars, and they are really online, and they have lovely stores, and you can order a cut, you can see everything you need to see about the guitar, and it will be delivered to you in 24 hours if you want to buy it now. And these are expensive things. This isn't a cheap thing. Or you can come and pick it up, or you can come and try it. And when you go into the store, they have little booths where you can sit and plug yourself in and make a lot of noise. Or they'll talk to you and they have a live chat function. All these things that have evolved, like live chat, talk to someone, get some answers quickly back. Something of value. Jewelers, I don't know whether jewelers are particularly good online, or question to the audience, would you buy an expensive watch online without trying it on? How safe would you feel? Don't know.
Audience, feel free to stick an answer to that in the Q&A, and I will feed that back. Thank you, guys. Some good examples.
No.
Thank you to the Karen saying no straight away. Thank you to the person that asked that question. Of course, you know, many retailers are still playing catch up. Primark, however you say it, have finally launched Click and Collect this week. So be really interesting to see how that goes for the guys. So 45 minutes in already, it's whizzing by. So I'm going to ask another round of questions to these guys. And please, as I said, you still have time to get another question in, but we will start to move into a final round of questions now as well. Lee, I'm going to come back to you. We've talked about digital, blended retail, but one of the key drivers of retail growth is also data as well, and how retailers use data. How can you link, for example, payment data to customer experience, and what can retailers play with to make that better?
Yeah, I think you're right, Darren. There's so much data these days in organisations. It's actually, understanding what it can bring to you as a business and to your customers. Data for me should be looked at as something that's really a strategic asset. It's something that when you start to look at how you want to make decisions as a business, it gives you a solid baseline. It removes a lot of the guesswork. And for me, it's really important. From a payment perspective, what we're able to do now is able to sort of what we call tokenize card numbers, so that within basically a retail environment, no card sensitive and PCI sensitive data is floating around unencrypted in a retailer's network. And we're able to track cardholder behavior across different channels through our payment services, which means that we can start to monitor and understand how much time does somebody spend in the online space, the in-store space. And we're even talking to people now where in payments there can be lots of sort of trends that seem to go around that drive activity and actions. In the past, a lot of it's been around security, and it continues to be to a lesser extent the same. But now people are saying to us, how can we use the data? You guys are seeing where our customers spend their money, on which channel they spend it. What can we do with that? So by being able to sort of share that data, and then when retailers start to combine that with the insights and information they have, they get what I call actionable insights. And it allows them then to build, sort of much more specific and tailored, engaged, targeted, personalized experiences for the customers. And once you're able to start to do that, then you start to encourage people, to, again, feel that they're more part of a journey that you're trying to give them. You're trying to treat them as an individual, and that makes them feel better. It makes them want to come back. Then, we talked about earlier, sort of giving them a reward and recognition for being a loyal customer. It just starts to build around it. So for me, payment data, I think, is something that's there that can be tapped into. It can be combined with other things, and then it can help really deliver those personalized experiences that retailers really aspire to and customers actually love.
Greatly, thank you. And I'm going to stay with that subject on to Aaron, but just say thank you for your contribution to the panel this morning as well. It is whizzing by, and I feel like we could go on for hours as well. Aaron, stay with this subject of data. So can you give another real world example question here? Can you give an example of where leveraging data has had an absolute direct impact on sales?
I think our business, which was kind of digital first, pretty much every commercial decision that we made was based on some degree of insight into data, because we kind of built the platform from the ground up. We were able to do things like monitor how long it was between people ordering certain types of products. For example, a moisturizer, a 30ml moisturizer of a certain brand might last the average customer 6 weeks. So we were then able to kind of put in place kind of algorithms which said that any customer who buys that, we know roughly the date when we should be emailing them to say your product might or may well run out in the next few days. Would you like to reorder? I mean, that's just one very, very simple example. But because we've kind of built the product built the platform from the ground up, and because we every time we kind of got new SKU data, it was very easy to start from zero and assign the right attributes to all the right kind of parts of what we were doing in terms of product and consumer data and what we held and what we asked from them. It's difficult to think of something where we made decisions about changing things, with a view to trying to increase revenues, because at the end of the day, that was the most important thing, rather than conversion rates and stuff like that, that didn't involve access to some degree of data. I'm having said all that, I am slightly cynical about an obsession with data, because I think often organizations get so obsessed with access to data that they miss the kind of why. And I always tend to think it should come from the other direction. It should be, what are our objectives? What are we trying to achieve? And I think often people get a lot of data, but they don't really know what questions to ask of the data. And I see that time and time again. So I think as long as you really understand practically how it can help you and where there are points of leverage, it's fantastic. Obviously, we built a whole business on it, but there is slightly an obsession with the amount of data rather than, what do we want to know?
It's like a data, you don't know where to start kind of thing. Yeah. Thank you, sir. And I want to just say thank you for your contribution to the panel today as well. And good luck with the launch of Indu. I've got no doubt it will be a huge success. So I look forward to seeing that come to life as well.
Thank you.
Nick, you're going to wrap it up for us. So stay with data, but I'm going to evolve it to consumer data for you because the world that you inhabit. Have you got any examples of where you've leveraged consumer data to potentially influence our wonderful government?
Oh, right. Well, actually, yes. Well,
that's tongue in cheek, by the way.
Yeah.
So
Well, no, yeah, not in that way. Yes, yeah, we had nothing to do with the U-turns.
Yeah.
But no, seriously. So I've been in Australia a long time, and what happens with Australia is you put your postcode in, so we can actually see, and a postcode delineates to a couple of houses on the street, so we can see who you are. We've got demographic data from Acorn to see who you are. We know who you are. We know what you're looking at, and for years I tracked what people were looking at, and then measured it with what people were buying with the DVLA, the driver vehicle licensing, and we could see that of the top 10 cars that people were registering every month were the same as the cars that people were looking at on Australia. And this was before we sold new cars. So we were just used cars for a long time, and now we're new and used. So you could argue that Australia's audience is representative of car buyers in the UK. What people look for is what they buy. So we said, yes, so we can say we are a proxy for the automotive UK population. So now we know what people are looking for. One of the big issues, and this goes back to electric vehicles, is where do you put your charging stations? They're expensive things to put in. They need to have a return on investment. There's around 31,000 charging stations in the UK. There's estimates we need 150,000, but they're expensive things to put in. So what we're doing now with our data is every 8 weeks, we go to OZEV, which is the Office for Zero Emissions, part of the Treasury. We go to number 10 and we actually present our data, because we can say we know who is looking for electric vehicles and where they are and where they aren't. So when you're thinking about planning where you're going to put your charging stations, we can see the hot spots and the cold spots, because it's a big investment. And actually it's an altruistic thing. It's a philanthropic thing. We're not charging for this data. We're trying to help. And we feel an obligation, because as a marketplace that has 440,000 cars, which are arguably polluting the planet, we have to try and help move towards electric vehicles. I'm a petrol head, but I'm also an EV head too. I will have an electric car soon, when they're affordable and there's enough of them. And of course, at the moment, there are supply issues and long lead times. We hear 12 months to 18 months. I'm sorry, that's my fire alarm going off.
That's all right.
I hope it's only a test. No, it hasn't gone off yet, so it might not go off. It hasn't gone off. Okay, I'm going to carry on. I'm not going to burn to death, but
we need you to wrap it up anyway, Nick.
I'm going to wrap it up. So we're using data. We are using data to actually influence the government. So, and it seems to be working.
That's interesting. I could start a whole new webinar about life at number 10 on the back of that one, but we are running out of time. Has your alarm stopped now? I can't hear it.
No, I can hear it.
Okay, well, you better go and check it out on that point. But listen, guys, what an amazing hour we've had together. So firstly, Lee, Aaron, Nick, thank you so much for an amazing contribution. Stellar panel. We could have gone on for a long time. Thank you, audience, for your questions. If you've enjoyed the session, please come back for our second session of the morning. We start at 10:30. I'm having a little exclusive fireside chat, one-to-one, with Sarah Pointer from Ceridian. So you'd be very welcome to join us for that. But for now, take a quick break. Thanks again to you, gentlemen, and we'll see you at 10:30.